The world is changing so fast that we may not be able to appreciate the changes in full. For example, did you know that in 2020, for the first time since the 19th century, the economies of Asia surpassed in size all those of the rest of the world combined? Well, it's true. And then the wealthier countries, particularly those of old Europe, not only face a demographic stagnation, but also have increasingly aging populations. For example, it is expected that by 2060, the population of the European Union will barely account for 5% of the global population. Not only that, but 30% of the entire European population will be over the age of 65. In other words, the world will be becoming increasingly more Asian and above all, much more African.
Imagine a continent that will have the same population as India and China combined in 2050. Think of a continent with a growing middle class, rapid urbanization, and that will have the youngest population on the planet in 2050. Think Africa. Akinwumi Adesina, president of the African Development Bank, AFDB.
The world marks World Population Day today, but many in the West issued dire warnings that by 2050, the population could rise to 9.7 billion. According to these experts, the high fertility rates in Africa will be the cause behind this population surge. Africa's rising population is a growing concern for many in the West, as the continent is expected to roughly double its population by 2050, adding 1.2 billion humans to its current population of 1.4 billion humans. The main driver of population growth in Africa is high fertility rates, which is driven by multiple factors, including high desired family size, better development in the regions, an ever-improving healthcare system, and ever-growing economies. These latest statistics seem to greatly trigger many in the West who are experiencing a huge population collapse. This has led some Western policymakers to go full racist and even call for an outright culling of Africa.
So forth. People don't quite grasp the difference in scale in what's happened in Africa.
I think there's another way of putting it which might resonate with people, which is if you go back to 1950, there were 2 Europeans for every sub-Saharan African. And by the end of this century, there are going to be 6 or 7 sub-Saharan Africans for every European. And I think that is going to change the world. Now, I can't tell you exactly how it will change it. I always say that demography is one lens on the future, but it's only one lens. But for sure, when there are 6 or 7 times as many Africans as Europeans, versus when, going back to 1950, there were twice the number of Europeans to Africans, it will change everything. It's going to change the demography is the sort of fundamental thing. It's going to change economics. It's going to change global strategy, military power. It's going to change culture. It's going to change food. It will be a very different world when the weightings of the 2 continents are so very different.